All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. As always, your host, Brandon, my co-host, Nick and Dan, and gentlemen, we've got the West Ham match review as we look to wind out this season, blowing bubbles everywhere, Nick. I can't be stopped.
Yeah, were you blowing bubbles today? Is that your way to distract your child on the way home from a long trip, or
We're
what
great.
was that? Just
Yeah.
did you pop them like Chelsea did today, or what?
Yeah, he thankfully got to learn a good lesson that we're not as bad as we thought, which hopefully we can unpack that a little bit more. So, anyways, a lot of good stuff. But Dan, we always want to present the arguments and the sentiments of those that listen with our 3-word match review. So present away, sir.
Look, we had Nicholas off the top with a topical rap themed reference in Meet the Hams, kind of like Meet the Grams, the Kendrick diss track. You had another reference, Ted Lasso this time from Jason, with Suck It Rupert. Megan with Beaches Can Wait. That's right, because it's not summer for us yet. Jay asking the question, Stamford Fortress rebuild, showing all the results Chelsea have had recently and the fact that there's only one loss in recent memory there. You had Sachi with the inverted god Kukurea, blew all through with forever bursting bubbles. Chelsea FC USA with back to back, and they had brick house as the emojis to go with it. And Lynn's catching on the fact that Gerard Butler was at the game, seated next to a friend of ours. This is Chelsea.
That was a lot going on towards the end of the season, right? I think we've had quite a few visitors recently.
A lot of guests, a lot of special guests in the house. I think they had like a bunch like around Christmas too. I think they had like Olivia Rodrigo and all those types as well. So maybe Kevin Durant will make an appearance now that he's out of the playoffs. But hey,
Oh man, I kind of played off of Jay's, because I put quietest win streak. Didn't really feel like it, right? It didn't seem like we were flying high with all those results and things. But I tell you what, it's actually a lot better than it maybe the kind of vibe has been. But the season as a whole has tempered things, I think, quite a bit. Nick, what about you?
progress. I think it's hard to tell, but I think the general vibe right now with the way the team is playing and the way that they are approaching the end of this season, I think it's the one loss in the last 12 matches, something like that is the stat. So, I mean, it's macro picture. There's some good stuff happening.
And then Dan, what about you?
Look, the longest preseason ever has finally come to an end. I mean, look, it took through May, but this preseason's over, which is great. I'm glad that we finally came alive with 3 matches left to play in this season and all up for grabs next season.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, right? Nkunku sighting kind of made it feel a little bit like that. But hey, before we jump into it, always want to shout everybody out who hooks us up. And if you want to help 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, does a world of difference. It's free. Subscribe and check us out on YouTube. Make sure you get notified. We'll always put our pods up there. So if you want to see our reactions to crazy things we say, it is there. Also, we have the weekly newsletter from Sam, CFC Central, every week, the London's Blue Dispatch. Free. And lastly, Discord for a few bucks. You can hang out with the best Chelsea community online. Lock in for the last few matches. It will stay on fire. But we want to jump into the match because it was West Ham this past Sunday, the 5th of May in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. Thankfully, and in case you missed it, Chelsea 5, West Ham 0. Absolutely nothing. Palmer with the first from the assist on Jackson. Gallagher, then Madueke assists Silva. Jackson again assists Madueke. And then Jackson on the double assist Caicedo, as you would expect. So, Dan, run us through the lineup that led us to this. And don't forget the bench because there's some new names that we haven't seen.
Well, it was Petrovic between the sticks, and it was Trev Chalobah as right back, which we talked about could be a possibility. Thiago Silva and Benoit Badiashile as the center back pairing, and Marc Cucurella, as we heard earlier, inverted fullback god. Conor Gallagher and Moises Caicedo with your midfield pivot, and you had Mykhailo Mudryk, Cole Palmer, and Nani Madueke as your attackers, with Nico Jackson right up at the tippity top of the tree. It was Cassidy and Kunku, Disasi, Gusto, and Gilchrist all making appearances off the bench. But look, it was Washington, Sterling, Levi Colwell, and Bettinelli who did not make an appearance off of the bench.
Colwell sighting. That's friendly. That's good to see. Also in Kunku, obviously. It sounds like they're starting to get just healthy enough to not play towards the end of the season.
Again,
So
preseason has
yeah.
finally ended.
Or it started again, Dan. There you go.
We got preseason. We're preseason getting started early. That's what we're doing, actually. It's
That's
the
where
inverse.
I thought you were going with your 3-word match review. Is preseason starting early? It's like that's a little harsh, honestly. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, looking at some of these stats too off SoFscore, I don't remember the last time we've seen sub sixes, but Agbana and Palmieri on the left side getting absolutely roasted, which I think when you see how much success Nico Jackson Madueke had makes a lot of sense. You know, the lowest one was Mudryk. It's 6.9 for Chelsea in terms of starters, which again, you're seeing really strong performances. But the weird thing is, Nick, it's not like, you know, Thiago was just injured and now he's back. Like, Benoit Badiashile was out for a while. Now he's played a couple matches. I'm kind of surprised that there's, you know, that like we threw Thiago Silva in so quickly after this, but it looks like it worked out and he's okay, especially when you've got Disasi's back. Gilchrist was there and even Levi Cole on the bench to provide some cover. I was a little worried at the beginning that it was a little bit of end of season gambles, but if it was, worked out just fine.
Well, they didn't have much to do today. I mean, there were a couple of weird off the bar moments from West Ham, but overall, the defense had very, very little to do except try and chase down Mohamed Kudus, doing all sorts of tricks and flicks all over the field, but not really getting anywhere. So, yeah, you start to look around, and it's a lot of mid sevens on the Sova score. Again, not a scientific method, but just kind of take that as a general out of 10 performance, and it's hard to disagree with that. Madueke at a 9.5, Palmer at an 8.5, Caicedo at a 7.9, Thiago Silva at an 8.1, Jackson at a 9.7. I mean, these are all just brilliant performances across the board. And it's really all coming from that right-hand side of Chelsea's formation that's doing a lot of the damage. You know, I've heard many things. I've seen many things about just how Chelsea are kind of isolating Mudryk on the other side. Talk about that later. But yeah, the right side's just absolutely killing it right now.
Well, some of the stats to play this out: Chelsea with an overwhelming 4.22 xG, West Ham with a measly 0.88. We had 69% possession. We had 25 shots and 14 on target. So a brilliant day in that perspective. We had 4 shots off target with 7 blocked to round it out, which I would say, again, that meant it was a tough day for Alfonso Areola, who was West Ham's best player by miles at an 8.1. No surprise there. From there, we actually just had the one caution to their 3. We had 6 big chances. We only missed 2, which, look, that is not the Chelsea team we are used to this season. West Ham had to and missed both, as we talked about. They hit the woodwork 3 times, and I think that probably encapsulates all of them that they had. And we did hit the woodwork as well. Connor somehow from close range smashing off the crossbar. And then from there, Petrovic, this can't be. This got to be flipped. We had 19 shots in the box, absolutely peppering them. Alfonso Areola with 9 saves, Petrovic with just the 2. And busy day for one, not so much for the other. So we'll wrap it with the one random stat here that says, add up to Joe, 9. Chelsea have won 9 of their last 11 Premier League home games. Draw 1, lost 1. Indeed, since the start of December, they have the joint most home wins, 9, level with Arsenal, and home points, 28, level with Man City, since in the competition building. But Dan, you know, I don't do calendar years. I don't do adjusted years, but I guess you take it when you can for a piece of evidence that things are going well.
I mean, you could even say it's trailing, right? You could say it's the trailing 11 home games. Would that feel better for you when you talk about performance of employees at work, when you're looking at trailing weeks? Would that be okay with you?
I'm just saying, I saw you put a table since December in the group chat, and I want to be careful. It's slippery slope, Dan.
It turns out, Dan, that they play games even before December as well.
Is that also part of preseason, or is that pre-preseason?
First territory.
Yeah.
It is building, right? Especially the way the season has gone. They're starting to pull out some of the silver strings, which is good. And thankfully, Nick, we had an NPUT Shithouse moment of the match again.
Yeah, I this was all about the fans today, who I thought were brilliant and sent West Ham's fans home packing early. Chelsea started doing Olays in the 57th minute today, which look, if you're a West Ham fan and you're like, oh man, we're already 4-0 down, and they're just like very casually passing the ball around the field without any of our players getting close to it, and the crowd is jeering you for like the last 35 minutes of the match. That's a tough one. That would get me on the tube pretty early, I think.
I was explaining it to Elizabeth because she was kind of like, what is going on?" I was like, "Ah, yes." And then I think it got so many in a row. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think they just started singing "Ole, Ole, Ole, Ole" because it
Yeah,
was just at least 60 passes in a row. Like
yeah.
it,
It
like
it
West
was a
Ham
long time,
West
like
Ham
inordinate.
did not give a shit about this match, and obviously that played a huge part into it, and we'll touch on it. But I was only worried when James Ward-Prowse entered the pitch. That was the only time I got a little bit scared. So, anyways, let's take our first ad break. When we get back, talking about hammering the competition. Thank you to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, delightful day in SW6. West Ham coming from the east side of London, not enjoying it, and the biggest reason he didn't enjoy it, Dan, was that Palmer continues to be electric. Jackson on fire as we wrap up this season, and Madueke getting involved as well. So let's kick it off with Palmer, an FPL must have at this point.
I like the fact that it's releasing this podcast will release on his actual birthday. So there were many references in the broadcast to the fact that he was it was going to be his birthday on the eve of his birthday. And the stat now after his goal contribution or his goal here is that he is the third Premier League player aged 21 or younger to register 30 plus goal involvements in a single season. It's with Robbie Fowler and Chris Sutton. That is a really elite level of company for any player. So hats off to young Cole Palmer for continuing. Ultimately, we had seen some legginess from him over the last couple of games. I mean, this was an opportunity against a team that really didn't want to be there. They really didn't want to be there, right? They went hard on saying, you know what, we're going to try. We're going to try the Europa League thing. We're going to see what happens there, conference. That did not go well for them. And so their season has been over for quite some time. Moyes has been basically getting ready for his next journey of his career. And Palmer got to take advantage of it. It was really great, phenomenal goal, and you know, unfortunately, Erling Haaland decided that he was going to separate the distance between the two
Yeah.
of them in the Golden Boot race. But boy, oh boy, it's still one of the most enjoyable single seasons for a Chelsea player, Nick, that I think we've seen in quite some time, and will be hard for him to duplicate even in the next season.
Special player, special performance. I mean, you could forgive him for looking a little leggy because he's carried the fucking team on his back this year, and has really put in a shift. You're nowhere near this point in the table without him, and I think that's just a credit to some phenomenal play at a really young age. I mean, he's just about to turn 22 or just turned 22, so I mean, this is a player who's not even in his prime, putting up prime level numbers that haven't been seen but twice in this context all time in the league. So, look, it's a massive deal. I mean, obviously, it gets us off the board, and we know, Brandon, that when Chelsea score first and they start feeling the good vibes early, it can lead to some really good things. We saw this with the Everton match a couple weeks ago now. So it kind of felt like that again today, where they got off to a hot start. They dominated the ball. West Ham tried pressing us for like 10 minutes, and then it was just like they stopped trying effectively, and he took full advantage. And look, the goal and the assist are great, and I think it's phenomenal. But like, he probably should have had three or four other assists today too that didn't go in. You think about the ball that he played to Mudrick over the top, that like cheeky little lofted ball, and it's a shame that he doesn't have more assists this year. I think is kind of where I'm coming from.
Well, they actually didn't even give him an assist today. Um,
Oh, they didn't.
no, but to your point, like that
What?
that Mudrick one, right? That ball was so perfectly weighted. And Mudryk had a great first touch. And so I thought that was for sure going to go in. Just smashed it at Ariola, unfortunately. But yeah, look, he's gone from strength to strength. He definitely was looking tired today. And I think that you can forgive him. But even on a tired day, still creates a goal, right? Like he still buries one and finds a way to be decisive. But this was an attacker's dream today. I don't know about you guys, but like it looked like Ogbonna and Zuma were just jogging around. Like they weren't really committed to anything. And the rest of the team, especially like the midfield in front of them, I mean, it wasn't anything that they were really up for the fight, especially when you get the goal right away in the 15th minute. And then again in the 30th minute, I think at that point they were done. And so for an attacker, it is a dream for them to really just be able to run riot. And that's what Jackson did. And I think that if you look at the next two players, Dan, this is where they are really building a case for themselves. Palmer's good, right? Palmer could have just sat on the bench the rest of the season and won player of the season for Chelsea, in contention for player and young player of the season for the Premier League. Is Matt. You had a great conversation with him recently, guys. Nico Jackson, well done to take advantage of it. I was very skeptical of him, especially in the middle of the season. Went to AFCON. It almost seemed like that was a spark for him
Oh, that's a good point. We'll need to look back on the pre-AFCON, post-AFCON stat breakdown there.
because he
I
didn't
think what
play, right? So
he
maybe that
did
was a
not
bit of a
play.
wake up call for him.
There were some great movements in this match and really good channel runs. I mean, we've seen in the past two matches now some of the breaking runs that he's had, particularly when either our midfield or our defenders are playing balls over, playing him into space. I mean, it was stuff that Timo Werner was looking for all the time, right? And Nico Jackson's getting that type of ability now to go one on one with a defender and beat them to the ball, make space for himself, and either get involved with another player or take a shot on for himself. And I think there are times where he's now taken the shot, which is really, really great. And there are times where he's just gotten himself into the right space and can feed off the assist from another to square the ball back to him. Like there's a lot of unselfish play in this match. And I know we've been banging the door down, just like, hey, play for each other, play for the team, play for the badge, play for the supporters. Nico Jackson was doing that today. Cole Palmer was doing that today. Madueke, we'll talk about, was doing that today. It was that total team performance and attack. I think there's the point that at 16 goals in all competitions, that's the same. We mentioned Didier Drogba last game, talking about his Premier League goal tally exceeding Drogba. Now he's matched the goal tally for Drogba all competitions first season at 16 goals. Has three matches left. Could go above that as a phenomenal watermark. But what I really liked after the game is he talked about the goal getting squared to him by Madueke, and he made the comment, Nick, that every time I score, VAR will try to interfere. But I was really happy this time. I think some of that might be the fact that he does occasionally cheat his run, but he's getting better. But he will, he might feel like VAR is coming after him when he tries to keep it very tight.
He plays on the edge. I mean, he tries to play on, in between the center backs usually or on the shoulder and just tries to beat him with speed. And there are very few defensive players in the league that can catch up with him once he gets a full head of steam going. I mean, he is diabolically quick. So it is, it's Kyle Walker and I don't know, name someone else that has that, maybe Van de Ven, who has that sort of quickness that can keep up. Like, it's not many anyway. So, again, super happy for him. A couple weeks ago, you could tell he was feeling the pressure of this. Like and you guys, you and Sam did a wonderful, preview of him when he was signed, and I think mentioned that he would go through hot and cold patches. Essentially, was streaky, and I think went scoreless for like 6 or 7 matches, and then now scored in 2 games in a row. And look, I mean, we'll talk about the table and Europe and all that stuff later, but if he keeps scoring in these last 3 matches and ends on a hot streak, to me, I think it reshapes what we potentially need or don't need in the summer in terms of that position, Brandon, because I think he has grown leaps and bounds this season coming from Villarreal to play at Chelsea is no easy feat, right? So to me, this is a guy who, if he can level out the dips and the highs and make it a little bit more kind of consistent, he's a real weapon.
We're talking 3 months of productivity at Villarreal as well.
Yeah.
So, and I was thinking some commentary. He was essentially signed to be a depth player because nobody could stay fit. Ends up being an out and out starter. And to your point, new league, new team. No one was gelling really. He was playing striker, then he's playing wing, and now he's kind of flexing in back to that. I don't think there's much more we could have asked for him this season. And at this point, I think it's like job well done from him. He's proven that he can score. Obviously, has his areas that he needs to improve upon, but he's committed. He's disciplined. He's a different player right now than what we had in the beginning of the season, who caused a lot of frustration. But I think without the dissent, the silly yellows and things like that, and you're seeing him disciplined and staying focused, it's also paying off on him as well. He's not getting distracted on the pitch. He's not getting worried about other things that he can't really control. And whatever the maturity process or the understanding that's happened throughout this season, it's paid off in spades. 16
Just
goals in all competitions.
Yeah, I think just to make mention of that, right? I think at the beginning of the season, if you went and listened to our preview, I think we said 15, right? Was about where we wanted him to be. So he's now past that in goals. He's now at 21 for goal contributions, right? So if you're just taking goals and assists, all comps, 21 is a really great place to be. He gets that to 24, 25, something like that by the end of the year. It's an unequivocal success from a signing perspective. So, again, I think there are going to be some matches that if he went and looked at the tape, he would be really bummed about his performance. But damn it, if that wouldn't be every single player in this team this year. So he has the hardest job on the pitch, which is scoring the damn goals, and then Petrovic has the second hardest job, which is keeping him out. Everyone else has stepped up and helped him, and I think the just make mention of the Chalobah pass for his first goal that got Madueke in. It's a phenomenal ball. It's a phenomenal ball, and the Madueke doing the very selfless thing of just squaring it across. We've seen that not happen multiple times this year, and we've all been crying out for it. So credit where it's due.
Fabregas-esque. That pass was of that level in terms of the delivery. The timing, where he played it into the space, the accuracy, all phenomenal.
Yeah, so he played it from a center back position as well, even though he's playing right back. He's tucked in because in possession we were back three. So good, so unbelievably good, and like that's a long pass. It wasn't like a big lofted ball. He hit it with pace, drove it. So impressive. Um, he could have shot. I think no one would have. I think you would have expected maybe Madueke to shoot that pass to Jackson for that one was really, really unselfish.
Team football, man.
Yeah.
Team football. Stop. Like the minute this team stops playing as individuals, you get stuff like this. You get 5-0s, you get 6-0s against Everton. Like, it makes a massive, massive difference. And it was 2 weeks ago where him and Jackson were fighting for a penalty that neither one of them took. So I think the message was effectively communicated after that game as to how Mauricio Pochettino wants them to play, and it's looked better.
Yeah, and Madueke now getting right behind Gallagher with 16, tied for third in terms of goals and assists in all comps. And he's only done it less than 14 minutes, Dan. Like, Madueke went stretches of really not featuring, right? Like, he's had to weather his storms through this season, but to see there still be commitment towards the end of the season, loved beating Spurs after, maybe having a relationship with them at some point, but um, it's making it more and more difficult for Poch to drop some of these guys, which really at the end of the day is what you want. Our wing positions have just been for grabs all season.
Yeah, you're going to still want a little more out of, I think, the individuals who are not Cole Palmer. And I think really you want even more from Nico Jackson, even though I would say, it's like level one is Cole Palmer, level two is Nico Jackson. And then I would say, like, right behind like level three, the top of that right now would be Madueke, right? Like, and you still want a little bit more from him out of his play, but in general, making more cuts inside, trying to find more opportunities to connect with others. The layoff of the pass to Nico Jackson, I will continue to underline that. Like, that is something that not every attacker who plays for this Chelsea team would be willing to do for another player. And that is the type of mentality that this team needs to have. And, the inverse is true. Like, some players need to set up Madueke or set up Palmer, and, and that has to be more consistent. But this is a really good end to the season for him that I think was going to be very, very murky heading into what would his future portend. I mean, we're seeing a lot of Paez videos now with some of the stuff that he's doing. He's got about a year before he's going to come into Chelsea, and boy, oh boy, he looks like he is a absolutely
Stud.
special kid. And then you have, Hutchinson and what he did to help Ipswich get promoted. He looks to be very special as well. So like, there are young attackers within the Blue Co Chelsea sphere that are going to be nipping at the heels of these individuals, not to even consider the fact that there are also going to be plenty of players this summer who could be in consideration for a spot in that forward line. And Madueke is doing enough right now to be more firmly in the plans for next season than not, given these types of performances.
He's a super easy player to root for. Um, it's just been, I think he's gone through the individual v team battle. Like, I would just use his play against Villa in the first half versus what you've seen in the last two matches as a prime example. This is our last three matches, so it's pretty recency biased. But first half against Villa, all single take ons, trying to get to the byline, trying to make shots for himself. You look at the play against Tottenham and against West Ham, it's all team focused. It's all him trying to find Cole Palmer trying to find him trying to find Jackson trying to find him, and so on and so forth. And the play down the right hand side with Caicedo and today Chalba, but before that Gilchrist, is really great. And he's doing the defensive side of the job, right? Like, I know he came out with some quotes and praised Pochettino for putting an arm around him and helping him adjust tactically to the Premier League. That was, that's really great to see. It feels like there's a little bit more togetherness, and he might be a personality that can fuel that togetherness. Like, he, just the way that he is a brilliant sort of individual talent, but the way that he's starting to combine with players, for me, Brandon, uh, is fantastic. And let's just see where he goes at the end of the year, because I feel like our next preseason, whether you feel like it started now or not, is going to be hyper competitive on the
Yeah,
wings.
look, he came from PSV Eindhoven in the Dutch league, and we know that that is massively different to the Premier League week in week out. And he's still super young and adapting. But who had inverted wing or left back Cucurella on their Chelsea bingo card this season? Because I did not, but it was very, very obvious what was happening. The first couple times I was watching, going, "Oh God, here he goes again, just chasing everything."
On a
Yeah,
side
and
quest.
now you're like, "Oh, wait, he's actually looking for it in possession." I This is something different, and thankfully, Pochettino, Ben Jacobs tweeting the Poch quote to give us a little bit of light, because um, I was not sure where this is coming from. So, quote from Poch: "It's a role we can implement in the future. The first thing is to build belief, confidence, and trust. Tactical evolution starts in the head of a coach and then can be applied in the future on the pitch. But you can't sit if you don't have a chair. First, you need to build the chair. You want to see quickly the nice furniture, but it's sometimes a mistake to judge before things are built." I don't know what chair has an inverted leg or what he's talking about here, but Cucurella with the overload in midfield, adding a third player, um, it worked, and we can just be happy with that, Dan, because I don't know if this is something we're hanging our hat on every week.
I feel like Potch is taking his ideas from the Museum of Modern Art or something. His carpentry ideas here. Look, I think it has been very fun to root for Mark Cucurella over the past couple of games here. I mean, we saw, I would say, many people that I think are not fans of his over the past two games really sing some praises, find some ways to say nice things about him, and give him some plaudits. Do I think he is the perfect individual? I don't think so. I mean, I do think there's some room for interpretation in that role. I think a team that wants to play football a little bit more. I actually think we have played two very poor teams in West Ham and Tottenham back to back. I think Tottenham may go the rest of the season. I'm saying this in the group chat. I'm going to say it now. I think they can go the rest of the season without winning another game. Like they
Oh
are
my
just,
god.
they are tragic. They're so bad, mate. They are so bad. And this West Ham team is terrible. And when you don't have to defend a lot, it does make your job a whole lot easier. And so it's the only thing I want to caution in this remontada for Mark Cucurella is that a much better attack, a team that wants to play football, would find a lot more joy going down their right hand side or left hand side of defense. That's the only thing I want to caveat. It was still a really strong performance, Nick. I don't want to take anything away from that. I just want to take one step back as we have very few games left this season and people are writing in their starting 11 for the match day one of the 2024-2025 season. Maybe just slow, just a touch.
Tottenham play
Yeah.
Burnley and Sheffield yet this season.
Yeah, come on, Dan.
I look, I'm just judging it on their
I'm-
form. They look horrible.
Sheffield's down. So, but anyways, we'll see.
Right.
We'll
So
see.
they got pride, everything to
Yeah,
play for.
A lot of pride coming out of that team. Anyways, Nick, your response.
No, I'm on the same page. Like it's working now, but other teams have now had two matches to see it, so they're going to be able to game plan against it. I don't know if any of the last three teams that we play will give a shit enough to do that or not. I mean, I think that's really up for debate. Forest do have something to play for. Bournemouth and Brighton don't. So it's really just kind of where the tactical, kind of mastermind vision for Poch is heading with this. But I do think that Kukureya's performances on the whole over the last month have been okay. Like regardless of if he's doing this inverted thing or not, I think the Arsenal game is a disaster for everybody. So I'm not going to take that one and put it on him squarely. But I do think that in a moment where we haven't had Chilwell healthy, we've really struggled to kind of fill that void. We've seen Colwill play in that role and all that sort of stuff. I don't think it's impossible um, to just say that he's doing a pretty decent job right now. And, let's hope that he begins to even up level these recent performances into something critical. Because look, I mean, he is Brandon. I think he's at the point where, you talk about players that are on the bubble for next season. And I think he is one of those players. I think that, he could either leave this season on a high and give himself a real fighting chance next year, or not, and might get sold or something.
Yeah, I thought
So
about that too. It's
yeah,
like, how long do fans and supporters need to wait for a player to come good before they write him off? And I think a lot of us have written him off. He seems to be showing some good signs, but again, Ben Chilwell is not healthy, so even long term, what's his role here on the team if Chilwell's healthy? We'll have to play it out, but you can't complain when even kind of you can say a lot of these guys maybe are second string stepping up in these situations,
hmm
Madueke, even Mudrik at times. Some of these center backs, Buddy Shields had a backup role. Trevo only started playing about, middle of the year because of injury and stuff. And they're playing really well. So it'd be very rude of us to nitpick some of these things, including Cucurella. So credit where credit's due. But we're going to take our last break. When we get back, a little bit on Moi Moi, and then we'll touch on the rest. Thank you to sponsors, and we'll be right back. Yes, Moi Moi Caicedo, absolutely terrorizing again today. I thought it was pretty easy for him, but he got to chop it up a little bit there, Dan. I mean, he's definitely involved. When you look at his personal stats, it shows that he was all over the pitch, box to box on the heat map. A really good run of form for him, which has kind of begged the question: is Enzo his best partner? But we can shelf that for now. You don't need to solve that.
Yeah, we need to slow on the Enzo items because I think when you have a player who was carrying a long-term injury for large parts of the season. There's a level of context that gets missed. I think what is not getting missed right now, though, is the evaluation from an eye test perspective, which I know Nick loves, and a data perspective that I love. When you marry those two things together, you get the same conclusion that Moises Caicedo is absolutely the player we thought he could be at Chelsea, in a midfielder who is comfortable making his way across the pitch, breaking up runs, distributing the ball, being very press resistant, drawing defenders in, attackers in to create space for others. Great assist today. Could potentially find more value in attack in the future. Just in general, I, I don't know. I can't say enough positive things about him right now, because I do think with all the good that's coming through the attack, with some of the nice performances we've seen from some of our defenders recently, Gallagher, I think, has mopped up a lot of the midfield praise. Caicedo is just doing a lot of work, maybe not always getting noticed doing it, Nick, but in general, I think is coming good in the right part of the season where people could say, like, oh, yeah, I see why we went to war to get this guy's signature and to bring him to the team.
It's been great. The right side of our attack and defense have been really solid. He's a big part of that. I mean, he is, I think, expressing himself in the way that a silent assassin kind of expresses themselves, which is
A
quietly but
trail of
effectively.
bodies.
No, I mean, there are a couple of West Ham guys that got crunched today, but I think it was is quiet and effective, right? I mean, it's a guy that doesn't talk a lot. He's not like the most vocal guy on the team, but he does put himself about, and he is really critical to how the ball moves around the team. He's an excellent passer. He has super high pass percentage. He looks very, very confident in his positioning right now, Brandon. And I think, again, if you're taking let's say the last like 8 weeks or so of performances that he's put out, it has been well worth the price tag of what he was kind of brought in at. And you need to see a full season of it. Obviously, you need to see him really dominate and do some of those things that N'Golo Kante did for us, without being N'Golo Kante, obviously. But if he's able to do that, I mean, he's just going to prove to be, I think, such an effective weapon for this team. And, again, is not, the most experienced Premier League player yet. So he's going to get more and more of that throughout this season.
One thing I was thinking about while watching him today was he's a DM, but to be at this level, like he's got a good pass on him. And I was looking at his stats from this match. He obviously had the assist, deep assist. Obviously, he had a key pass. He created a chance. But his long balls, he was 6 for 7, and he was 92% on his accurate passing. That's 95 out of 103. The fact that he was 6 of 7 for long passing as a DM shows you that he's not just like, and this is no slight, but the Jorginho role where it's just very short, tight passes. He's willing to have a press breaking pass, break a line, even going into attack, like we saw with Jackson. That just shows you that you have to be really good to play in the Premier League. A la the guys on the bench of an NBA team can absolutely hoop, but you just assume they can't because they're on the bench. But like Caicedo, I think we're seeing a lot more out of him. And I think this is just showing that the team's gelling. He knows what to look for when he gets the ball and picks his head up. The team is playing way more cohesive. And he's showing that he actually has a lot more than just an ability to kind of heat seek out the ball, win it back, and give it to someone else. He's involved in the play and the attack. So, like, huge, huge shout out to him for his ability to pull some strings today as well. So, very, very good.
Big shout out to West Ham for leaving a massive gap in between their defenders so that he could just easily slot one through to Nico for maybe the easiest assist of his life. I don't know, but again, it's good to see him get in the goal contributions, right? I think that's like the one thing that we really haven't seen from him this year is goal contributions. He, obviously the goal that he scored against Spurs in the first game was taken off because of the chaos around the box at that point. So, you do want to see him get a little bit more involved there, but I would rather see him where the heat map is right there, which is dominating that side of midfield advancing the ball up to someone like Noni, advancing someone up to Cole to Jackson. Like these are the things that we need our midfielders to do.
Well, the good news as we kind of now pivot off of the individual performances into the team holistically is that the European dream is still alive. CFC Daily tweeted a quote from Madueke said, "The chips fall how they are, or I'm sorry, the chips fall how they are meant to fall. We will do our best to finish as high as possible to try and qualify for Europe. We know what we can do now, and next season we can put everything into it," end quote. And so breaking it down a little bit is that if we end up in seventh, but Manchester United win the FA Cup, then like we do not get Europe. If we get to sixth, and obviously if United don't win it and we're in seventh, we do. But if we get to sixth, then we do get Europe. Is that how I'm reading it right, Dan?
So
City has to win the FA Cup. That's non-negotiable.
Point number one.
There we go.
Point number one. As long as they do, we get Conference League in 7th place and Europa League in sixth place. So, and I think it kind of details the remaining fixtures here, right? Newcastle, who we are currently behind on points by 2, which boy oh boy, to get that VAR decision incorrect a couple of weeks ago looks really rough right now on your boy Chelsea at the moment. Real rough on us. You have that fact. Newcastle plays Brighton at home, United at home, and then United away, and then Brentford away. So as we talked about last time, United and Newcastle are going to do something to cancel each other's maximum point total out by having to play each other. United, maybe by the time you're listening to this, it's already done. Maybe it's about to happen. United have to play Crystal Palace away. Crystal Palace has been super plucky. They play Arsenal at home. That is certainly going to be a loss for this United team. I'm sorry. There's no friggin' chance. Happily clip this if I am wrong, because that would mean that they are not winning the league, and I will be A-okay with that one. They play
same.
Newcastle, and then they play Brighton away. We play Forest, Brighton, Bournemouth. You would argue that we probably have the softest of those fixture lists right now. And so the goal is just to win out and have your maximum points and then let the chips fall as they may, as one Madueke said. And who knows? The winless Tottenham could end up dropping out. Newcastle could jump to 5th. We could be in 6th at the end of the season. And Tottenham could be in Conference League next year. Or United could pip them for Conference League. Tottenham could finish 8th. And mate, Postecoglou is out of there.
It's interesting.
It would be an all-time collapse if that actually happened. That would be one of the Spursiest things that's ever spurred.
It would be worth a DVD. Look, Brighton is the through line for all of us. Brighton really haven't done much. All right. Even RDZ seems like he's given up. They're on about an 8-week slide down the table. They've got 1 win in their last 5. Right. They beat Villa this weekend 1-0, which, to be fair to them, is a good result. That's 4th place Villa, right? Who were undefeated before that.
He's only playing the shoots half of shoots and
Yes.
ladders.
So that'll be interesting. But, I think United are the easiest ones to take their eye off the ball with that FA Cup, right? Manchester Derby, FA Cup final. They know that they could still get in with that. We saw how Chelsea dropped off at the end of the season a few years ago when we were getting ready for the FA Cup. And it's possible. But Chandler Parkinson, good friend of the pod, wants absolute chaos. He wants Chelsea on 5th on 63, Tottenham on 7th or 6th on 62, Newcastle 7th on 61, United in 8th on 61. And again, the chaos that would ensue off of that would be amazing. But
63 is our max points. We only have 9 more points to win, but if you win them all, you get to a max of 63. I mean, if you're looking at this realistically, I think, Dan, you're right. Like, United have 2 or 3 very losable games in there. And I'm doing the thing where I'm not making a prediction that they will lose, but my buddy Blaze is a United fan, so I'm going to give him absolute shit if they lose to Palace tomorrow. And it's going to be great. I think then we need the table to turn and United to play their best game of the remaining Premier League fixtures against Newcastle and beat them. If they do that and we win all of our matches, we're in Europa. So
would be
that's what
absolutely wild. but it would be a huge, huge boost for this team next season. The other thing is Potts changing opinions here towards the end of the season? That's a question. It's not a statement before everybody jumps on me. That's a question. Obviously, he's been deploying Cucurella effectively. Madueke has stepped up, and even Palmer, he had a week off, took a knock, and he's still continuing to be the shining star. I guess, Nick, I'll even start with you. Do you feel like Potch's stock is rising? It was super low, I mean, just a handful of weeks ago. Obviously, the Arsenal defeat was the breaking point for a lot of fans, but it seems the team has rebounded pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a credit to him after that, that thumping we took against Arsenal to come back, shake it off against Villa, and then, win two London derbies in a row. I do think the team is still playing for him. If we're being honest about that, you know, it's a results based business, right? So I don't have a personal connection with this manager, but I think if he's able to get us into the Europa League, and you look at that year over year, in terms of where we said we thought we were going to be, I think it would be really challenging for him not to be the coach next year from a board perspective. If we are to reach the Europa League, if we don't reach the Europa League, or we reach the Conference League, or we don't reach any of them, I think that does call into question his performance as manager this year. But who knows? I do think if we get to the Europa League, Dan, we're in for another year of Potchball. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay if we win out. I think if it's a mix of wins and draws, but we still end up with Europa League, just based upon other performances, he'll stay. I think if there's wins and draws and we get Conference League, I think it could be 50-50, probably with a trend towards keeping and trying to find some stability. And then I think if there's no European qualification out of these last three matches, I think that's where it becomes the door is at least open, and the conversation is a little bit more of who is available, who we could bring in. Is there an immediate upgrade? But I think the question will be is like, how quick can that person get in? How quick can you establish a cohesion between the owners, the sporting directors, whomever joins that group as well, and then the manager to get ready? Because again, we're looking at sub 3 months for getting ready to go and being involved in the next season and being ready to go attack the Premier League again. Like, it is not a lot of time. And so your question is, do you roll the dice on the data you're seeing? And again, I know, Brandon, you hate this idea of a table during a period of time, but I'm only using it to provide a trend to look at. And that is from December 25th, Christmas time, to now. Even as we were gifting teams draws when we should have absolutely had a win, we are a late Santa Claus. We are fourth overall in points gathered from that time period. So Manchester City, 18 matches played, 48 points. Arsenal, 18 matches played, 43 points. Liverpool, 17 matches played, 36 points. Chelsea, 17 matches played, 32 points. And you could argue that actually could be anywhere from 4 to 6 points higher, easy, if not for some really dumb collapses and one or two VAR decisions.
I can't
Like,
relive that
I'm
game.
I'm just trying to make a case. I'm just trying to make the case that this team has been one of the most unlucky sides in the Premier League this season, from results, from decisions, from injuries, whatever you want to consider it. And to say now that we're at a point where you're actually finding some stability, you could build a foundation off of it. You can make some smaller changes by adding in some more senior players to this team who've got some Premier League experience, who can round out the age component of this squad. There's something there to me. And the question will be is, do we value stability, or do we feel like there's a change that can occur between now and July 1st, when we'll want that to be on the books? We will not want to have Poch's dismissal on this past year's books, to kind of keep in mind and consider.
Look, I still think the two lagging things on him are maybe the in-game management and substitutions. I think those are things that the fans are screaming for, and he just doesn't. But it has to come down to keeping players healthy. I don't know if it's necessarily his direct involvement in that. Obviously, at some point, decisions are made to play players, and then we find out the next day they're injured, or worse, during the week when they're in a controlled environment. Then all of a sudden, right before the match, they're no longer fit. That's the problem for me that really needs to get to sort out. Because your point, Dan, if we had even 50% less injuries, I don't think Europe is a problem, even with this inconsistent team. But it was a nightmare season in terms of injuries, and something that needs to get sorted immediately. No matter him talking about this new medical department, the sporting directors, the owners, and above, like that should be pretty much the number one priority this summer, and I'm sure it's already being implemented.
So yes, yes. There is nothing that matters more to our next season and where that goes and how high we finish in the table or how good we were able to perform against the other kind of, notable competitors that we strive to kind of replace in the table than keeping this team healthy. Something has got to drastically fucking change. Like it can't be small improvements. Of course, there's a luck component to this. Of course, all this sort of stuff happens, but like it is genuinely the number one priority. Like more to me than replacing the manager is making sure that whatever the hell the training methodology is, whoever the medical professionals are, the red green sort of identification of a player's like capacity to perform at a high level, all this sort of shit. Whatever happened this year, crumple it up, throw it away because it's not good enough. Like we are one of the very few teams in the league that cannot keep players healthy, and it is embarrassing. And for a club that's owned by a bunch of venture capital types, a very poor return on their investment for these new signings that have gotten injured. So I can't imagine that they're not looking at every angle to make this better. But it does have to, some of it is his training, and we heard about this fitness regime and how they're going to be fit to press all season. That just hasn't been the case. It's been Conor Gallagher that's been fit all season and no one else really. Jackson, suppose, is in there, Disasi for the most part, but like you look at the level of fitness across the team, it's not been good enough. It's certainly not where they kind of made claims that they would be at this point. So that is a massive, massive, massive asterisk on where this goes next to me.
Well, hopefully up and beyond, because we can't repeat another season like this. Um, all right. Well, anything else from this one, or the larger picture you want to touch on, or should we poke fun at no man of the match?
Yeah, Dan.
And I
What
even
happened?
called it man of the match to
Look,
maybe try to separate you from the act.
Oh,
I appreciate
wow.
that separation. Look, if we had run a
If.
poll, it would have been Caicedo, Jackson, Madueke, and Palmer. I think.
Palmer won the actual man of the match, I think.
Huh.
So, yeah, I think it was Madueke for me personally. That's who I probably would have gone with, but any of them would
Yeah,
work.
I mean, I think Caicedo's out because he didn't
The team.
score, and that tends to level it up, which makes me think Jackson. So we're all split. Would be interesting. Put it in Discord. Would love to know. Nick, spin us around the table. Some other results. Obviously, we are looking at a few different teams around us. The title race still nice and tight, so that'll continue to the next week.
Arsenal cheat their way past Bournemouth 3-0. Emphasis on cheat. Newcastle just bury Burnley 4-1. Newcastle also playing pretty well this time of year, so that's going to be difficult. Brentford Fulham, a classic 0-0. Sheffield United, red card included, losing 3-1 to Forest, and Callum Hudson-Odoi brace there, which was a delight to watch. Man City turned on Robo Killer mode and decided to go just bury Wolves 5-1 after Wolves had beat them earlier in the season. Chelsea dismantle West Ham. We talked about that. Brighton did get a late winner against Villa from Joao Pedro after missing the penalty. He finally buried it. Liverpool just take the piss out of Tottenham, really stopped playing the last 30 minutes of the game, but still beat them 4-2. Crystal Palace and Manchester United on Monday night special. So come on, you Eagles. And then on start is this next week, the 11th. Yeah. So, uh, Dan, while we're at the football factory on Saturday, we'll be watching Man City Fulham as well as our beloved Chelsea. Hopefully, take 3 points off of Forest. So there you go.
Busy end to the season. I'm actually kind of surprised how many teams have games to make up yet. I think the where you should be pacing wise is 36, but obviously United and Palace need to play. They're on 34, and a lot of teams still on 35. So midweek matches, it will be a busy end of the season. Arsenal in first on 83 points, Man City second on 82 points, but they have that game in hand. So as long as they get points from their game in hand, they will be level. But Arsenal have a significantly higher goal difference than them. Unfortunately, what is it? 60 to 54. So I don't know. Maybe they smash a couple of people that could make it up. Liverpool third.
Look, just take some notes from the Chelsea women team. Destroy that goal difference in one game. Great idea.
First of all, can we talk about Chelsea women being 8 down with a game in hand on goal difference and just deciding, let's not wait for the next game against Tottenham to really finish the job. Let's score all 8 today and go up in the goal diff category by 1 with a game in hand on City, who shit the bed against Arsenal late. Incredible in Emma Hayes' last game that they put up 8 in record fashion. Just
Yeah,
unbelievable.
not wrong at all. Excited to listen to that that podcast coming out. Right. Let's see. So yeah, so Liverpool third, Villa fourth. So Liverpool is safe. Like no one's going to touch them. Villa are looking safer. Obviously, a point today would have been significant for them. They're on 36 matches played, 67 points. Tottenham in fifth on 35 matches, 60 played. So obviously, if they win their match in hand, takes them to 63, and it kind of gets them into touching range. But Dan said they're not going to win another match this season, so let the cocks fall.
Put it in the bank.
Newcastle 6, Chelsea 7, something we haven't said for a long while, but United 8, and all they have to do is get a victory and or even a point, and they will be up above us again. So we're firmly planted in top 8 at this point. It's really that race between us and United on 54, United or Newcastle United on 56, and maybe Tottenham at 60. Just 6 points between those 4 teams. So it's going to be pretty hot. Sheffield are down. We already know that. Burnley still alive for another week, but they're in 19th on 24. Luton in 18th on 26, and Forest in 17th on 29. Poor Mark Clattenburg had to step down from his job.
Technically, Burnley are down because if Forest get any of their points back, the maximum amount of 6, they're not gonna achieve over 30 points. Like that's just not happening. They'll get 3 when they beat Tottenham, just as we kind of clarified here earlier. But I do feel like we've seen enough. Luton, Burnley, Sheffield, goodbye. It was nice seeing you this season. Try to come back next year. Forest, even with your points deduction, are going to be safe. Everton, even with your point deduction, going to be safe. I feel like we're done. The cement is set on the bottom part of the
tough
table.
for Luton. They should have had a pen against Everton. I mean, shocking decisions. Yeah. Them and Forest both are like who can get screwed the least and survive this season. Tough year for VAR yet again. Anyways, not our problem this week, thankfully. And correctly getting Nico Jackson onside. I thought for sure is offside, but VAR doing the good work finally. Chelsea 5, West Ham 0. Good run for the Blues. We got to take it on the road next time as we take on Forest on Saturday. So we get another week off. Kind of nice.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I mean, Forest do have a lot to play for. We'll see you in New York. If you're going to the football factory on Saturday, we'll be there. And we're excited. I think it's going to be, again, it's like you win these last 3. That's the mission now, and let the chips fall where they may. And if it doesn't work out, it's because you didn't do the job earlier in the season to get it done. But if it does, and you pull off this great escape, I think it gives the team a ton of momentum heading into next season. And I think it probably reshapes how the fans feel about a whole lot of things. So let's hope they do it.
I think even 7 points goes a long ways, but Let's try to max it out. All right, Chelsea fans, that's it. A ton of content coming at you this week, as always. So stay subscribed, get involved in the newsletter and Discord as well. But that's going to wrap us up. Until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.